This is Standing Watch. And now, Evangelist Norbert Link.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to our Standing Watch program. Europe attacking America, America's freedom, now, as we speak. This might sound like an exaggeration, but it is not, as this program will show. I'd like to begin with an article by Breitbart, dated August 12th. Stepping directly into American domestic politics, the European Union demanded Monday that ex-owner Elon Musk abide by Brussels' speech restrictions during his planned, uncensored interview with Donald Trump. Now, let me just say I'm not here to endorse and support Elon Musk and his ideas. That is not the point. I mean, he has some very controversial ideas and concepts and has engaged in some controversial actions. But I want to show the censorship of the European Union towards even America. The article goes on to say, Thierry Breton, the European Commission's chief censorship czar, threatened to deploy all powers available to him under the Digital Services Act against X if the US president candidate breaches EU restrictions on speech. Breton said that because the Trump interview will be broadcast live throughout the EU on X, Brussels will monitor the dissemination of content that may incite violence, hate, racism, in conjunction with major political or societal events around the world, including debates and interviews in the context of elections. The EU censorship chief demanded, therefore, that X implement mitigation measures. The top bureaucrat said that his office will be extremely vigilant in looking for any breaches of the DSA speech codes and vowed to make full use of our toolbox, including by adopting interim measures, should it be warranted to protect EU citizens from serious harm. According to the EU, interim measures can include, and I quote, orders to terminate or remedy alleged infringements, meaning that the bloc may demand that Musk remove or censor his interview with a former American president. Now, this hasn't happened yet. The interview has happened, but we have to wait and see what will happen. The article goes on and continues. Large platforms found to be in violation of the DSA face fines of up to 6% of the firm's total worldwide annual turnover in the preceding financial year, or even face a potential suspension from operating within the European Union. Musk's X is already under investigation for supposed breaches of the bloc's disinformation policies. The conduct of the European Union would be laughable if it wasn't frighteningly serious. And so we see a march of the European Union into dictatorship. That should be obvious to everybody. Focus wrote on August 12th. In a conversation with Elon Musk, Donald Trump also expressed his view of the EU. The EU exploits us while we defend it. He also indicated that under him as president, the European states must contribute more financially to NATO. This was one of his favorite topics during his presidency from 2016 to 2020. I said clearly back then, pay up or we will not protect you anymore, said Trump in an interview on X. So we see if Trump becomes the next president, the relationship between the United States of America and the EU will deteriorate even further. The article continues. Musk also addressed EU Commissioner Thierry Breton's previous warning not to spread hate content in connection with the Trump interview. Musk called this an attempt at censorship, which of course it is. That's the whole goal of the EU, to censor free speech. Subsequently, after the interview was conducted, the New York Post wrote on August 16. The House Judiciary Committee has slammed the European Union's efforts to silence great Americans like Elon Musk and is threatening to investigate their attempted infringement of free speech, according to letters reviewed by the Post. On Thursday, Committee Chair Jim Jordan fired off a missive of EU Commissioner Thierry Breton, who he alleges is trying to weaponize law against Musk. Jordan accused Breton, a liberal, that's mildly put, of singling out conservatives, Musk and Trump, and attempting to intimidate them. The Trump campaign also slammed the EU, claiming its official is trying to interfere with US politics. The European Union should mind their own business instead of trying to meddle in the US presidential election, Trump campaign spokesperson Stephen Chung said. Let us be very clear. The European Union is an enemy of free speech and has no authority of any kind to dictate how we campaign. Now, subsequently, the EU distanced themselves from this letter, saying, oh, he wrote that without our knowledge or consent, but of course that is laughable and ridiculous because this guy is, in fact, the spokesperson for the EU when it comes to these kind of things. The article goes on to say, Jordan is also holding US leaders responsible and slapped the State Department with subpoenas to learn about the administration's communication with the EU about the matter. The silence from the pro-censorship Biden-Harris administration is deafening. You would think censorship of American speech for foreign or by foreign governments would be a step too far even for them, Jordan's spokesperson told the Post. Now, as we will see, it's not a step too far. Just the opposite is true. Continuing. In furtherance of our oversight, the Select Subcommittee has examined how other governments, including the European Union, have sought to censor speech online, one of their reports noted. While members of Congress cannot investigate foreign governments, they can defend American companies and protect them by publicly pushing back against censorship. And so the censorship employed by the US government and its collusion with the social media, mainly the left-wing social media, is appalling. But again, it doesn't end here. On August 20, the Ron Paul Institute republished the following article by law professor Jonathan Turley, who, by the way, is not a conservative. And this is what he said. Now, after World War II, he's talking about, that very right of freedom of speech is again under attack from another European government, which is claiming the right to censor what Americans are allowed to say about politics, science, and other subjects. Indeed, the threat from the European Union may succeed in curtailing American freedom to an extent that the Axis powers could not have imagined. They may win, and our leaders have not said a thing about it. One of the greatest threats to free speech today is the European Digital Services Act. The act bars speech that is viewed as disinformation or incitement. In Europe, free speech is in free fall. Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and other countries have eviscerated free speech by criminalizing speech deemed insightful or degrading to individuals or groups, according to the interpretation of the EU. According to polling, now that should be alarming to anybody hearing this. According to polling, only 18% of Germans feel free to express their opinions in public. 59% of Germans do not even feel free expressing themselves in private, among friends. Only 17% feel free to express themselves on the internet. There is now a massive censorship bureaucracy in Europe, and the desire to silence opposing voices has become insatiable. Some in this country, he goes on to say, the United States, have the same taste for speech regulation. After Elon Musk bought Twitter and dismantled most of the company's censorship program, many on the left went bonkers. That fury only increased when Musk released the Twitter files, confirming the long-denied coordination and support by the government in targeting and suppressing speech. In response, Hillary Clinton and other Democratic figures turned to Europe and called upon them to use their Digital Services Act to force censorship against Americans. The EU immediately responded by threatening Musk with confiscatory penalties against not just his company, but himself. He would have to resume massive censorship or else face ruin. Musk's defiance has only magnified the unrelenting attacks against him in the media, academia, and government. This campaign recently came to a head when Musk had the audacity to interview former President Donald Trump. In anticipation of the interview, one of the most notorious anti-free speech figures in the world went ballistic. European Commissioner for Internet and Internal Markets and Services Thierry Breton issued a threatening message to Musk, which we have already discussed. To recap, the article says, by Professor Turley, the EU is now moving to force censorship upon American citizens to meet its own demands of what is false, demeaning, or inciting according to them. Biden and Harris are not displeased with, but supportive of letting the EU do what they are barred from doing under our Constitution, even though they have been engaging in unconstitutional acts quite a bit already. This administration is arguably the most anti-free speech government since John Adams signed the Sedition Act. They have supported a massive system of censorship, blacklisting, and targeting of opposing voices. Democratic members have given full-throated support for censorship, including pushing social media companies to expand in areas ranging from climate control to gender identity. So, after only 80 years, our leaders are silent as the European government threatens to reduce our political speech to the lowest common denominator, which they will set according to their own values, quote-unquote values. Not a shot will be fired, as Biden and Harris simply yield our rights to a global governing system. If free speech is truly the indispensable right of all Americans, we need to treat this threat as an attack on our very existence, hence my title for this program. It is not only the rawest form of foreign intervention into an election, but a foreign attack on our very freedom. You see, it is clearly prophesied that Europe will become an unbelievable dictatorship, which will attack, quite literally now, the United States of America. So the relationship between those two power blocks, the USA on the one hand, the EU on the other hand, is going to deteriorate one way or the other. It doesn't matter who is going to be the next president. That's prophesied, that's clear from the Bible. We have prepared several free booklets which will go into the issue of explaining this inevitable outcome. And at the end now, we will advertise some of these for you to ask. And it's free, absolutely free. So thank you very much for listening. And until next time, this is Norbert Link for the Standing Watch program.
The Bible has much to say about the future of Germany and Europe and what this means for the rest of the world. Germany will rise again to become the leading nation of a conquering military power bloc. It will even attack and destroy the USA and the UK. But ultimately, Europe, under Germany, will fall again and be defeated and destroyed by an alliance of Far Eastern nations. Request your free booklet now to see the significance of Europe's future and Germany's role in biblical prophecy. Standing Watch is a presentation by The Church of the Eternal God, P.O. Box 270519, San Diego, California 92198. More information is also available at our website, eternalgod.org.